about that, getting some nice weather going on here. And again, Doc and Pam, thank you guys so much for all you've done, and your teaching and your wisdom that you've shared for the years. We're all very appreciative of that, and that we still continue to do. You know, we have a great group of a family of believers here, and just thankful for all of you, and excited for new members that are coming, excited to see what God is doing, growing, bringing new people in, and just want to say thank you for all you being here. We're very thankful for everyone. You're part of our church family, and just let us know how we can serve you, how you want to get connected and plugged in, want to be a part of a group, want to serve, something like that. We would love to just know how we can connect you and help you in anything we can do. This morning, we're going to delve into a well-known verse and a sermon topic, and it's about the inside matching the outside. And we're going to be in Matthew chapter 23. And it's a very interesting section because it's kind of before Jesus is going to the cross. And this is some of his strongest rebukes, actually, he has. And what's interesting is he's not talking to non-believers. He's talking to very, quote-unquote, religious people. And he has some very strong words for them to say. And what we're going to find this morning is what he says here is something, we all should look at and take to heart, because it's one of his strongest words, but something we all need to realize. So Matthew 23, and we'll see what Jesus has to say about this particular topic, because he's speaking to deeply religious people. These are the scribes and the Pharisees and the quote-unquote teachers of the law, and he's going to be having some very wise words. So Matthew 23, strong words. Verse 23, he says this: "Woe to you, teachers of the law and the Pharisees, you hypocrites! You give 1/10 of your spices, mint, dill, and cumin, but you have neglected the more important matters of the law, justice, mercy, and faithfulness. You should have practiced the latter without neglecting the former. You blind guides, you strain out a gnat, but swallow a camel." And so Jesus, again, talking to these very well-respected religious people, and he has these strong words saying, listen, you're focusing on all these things, you're doing all these rituals. They were so precise in wanting to do all these external things. They would even tithe the tiniest part of their spices, their mint, their dill, their cumin. They would tithe these, and they were very meticulous. They wanted to be faithful. But he says, actually, you're neglecting even more important things, such as justice, mercy, and faithfulness. You should have practiced the latter without neglecting the former. And what's so profound here, they're religious people, they're very well respected, and Jesus is pronouncing these woes upon him. And what this little section here should tell us is that God cares about the heart, not just religious activity. And these people were doing all the religious activity. They were doing all the motions. They were tithing their spices down to the spice, and they were doing these things, but they were missing the whole bigger point of justice and mercy and all of those things. And God really cares about the heart of the person and not just the religious activity. You can go to church, you can go to Bible study, you can serve, you can tithe, you can give to charity, you can do all of these evangelism things, but if your heart is not right, if you don't have a heart that is also rooted in mercy and justice and love, then you're missing the whole point of things as well. And that's what was going on. Because, again, they were doing the dues. They were keeping the list, right? And another kind of call is, if you think that you're okay with God because you're, keeping your little checkbox, again, are you harboring, though, in your heart things of hate or anger or bitterness or unforgiveness or self-righteousness, things like that? That would be a big red flag. Because Jesus here is pronouncing these things, because God is not impressed by outward religious activity if your heart is not right with him. And here, Jesus is calling the religious elite, he's calling them back really to the purpose of the covenant, which is a heart transformed to reflect God's love and mercy and justice. And so this should be a big hallmark of Christians, that people should know we're followers of Jesus. They should encounter God's love by the way they see us act and talk and treat other people and live our lives. Because it's very easy to think we are somehow good or okay or saved or whatever because we keep all the do's and we don't do the don'ts. And what Jesus here is telling people who was doing that is your hearts are actually far from God. You're missing what this is all about, is that your heart is being transformed by God and to reflect these things. And that's another thing, is the gospel, the good news, actually transforms us from the inside out. It's not about behavior modification. It's about God's Spirit working in us, and when we realize how much God loves us and what He has done and is doing for us, then we respond accordingly out of love and obedience and faithfulness. And it's not out of I got to, but rather I get to. I get to partner with God. I get to go out and help to push back in the kingdom of darkness where God is working in my life to help set people free from darkness and bondage and oppression and all of these things that is out in a broken, fallen world. And it's a good, important lesson here to see that it is possible to look spiritually healthy on the outside, but inside being neglecting the more important things. Is how is your relationship with God? Are you loving God? Are you loving others? Do you have a heart of, do you see evidence of the fruit of the Spirit? And the Bible lists them: love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, gentleness, self-control, things like that. Do you see that being produced in your life? Or do you look inward and say, I have a lot of anger and bitterness and hate and resentfulness or self-righteousness, thinking I'm better than people, or condemnation or whatever? And if that's the case, that would be something to say, wait a second, something is off. It's very possible to look very religious and outwardly okay, spiritually healthy, but inside be far from God. Now, because what matters is inward. Now go on to verse 25. It says, "Woe to you, teachers of the law and the Pharisees, you hypocrites! You clean the outside of the cup and the dish, but inside they are full of greed and self-indulgence. Blind Pharisee, first clean the inside of the cup and dish, and then the outside will also be clean." And we, of course, know they had very strict purification laws. And, of course, these people being the religious elite, they were very meticulous in following all the purification laws and the cleanliness, right? And he uses imagery of a cup. The cup outside looks clean and looks all good, but actually inside is the problem. It's dirty. You haven't addressed the real root of the issue, the real root of the problem. It looks good on the outside. You're doing all the things, and you're keeping a little list of things, but what we see is Jesus wants inner cleansing, not just an outward appearance. And that's true, right? We can come here and look good, look like we got it all together, but then we go out, and our lives look very little maybe like Jesus, very little like we're a follower of Jesus, very little maybe love and mercy and grace and justice and things of that nature. Now again, being loving doesn't mean that we condone sinful behavior or lifestyles or things like that. Of course not. We trust what God says, and so you can still love somebody, but also say, you know what, on this matter, I'm going to agree with God and not what culture says or whatever politics say. And I can still love somebody. I mean, Jesus did that, right? Remember the woman caught in an act of adultery? And the woman caught in the act of adultery, they were going to stone her. And Jesus, said, "Those who without sin cast the first stone." And so he showed the mercy and the grace and the forgiveness. And then he extended a hand and said, "Get up," right? He wasn't condemning. But then he said, what? "Go and sin no more." So he was loving the person, but he also wasn't condoning the behavior. And that's something we have to be important in our culture as well. When it comes to an issue, what does God's word say about it? Not what do I feel about it or culture says about it. But we can still love people. We can still be kind to people. We can still show mercy and grace. But the reality is, he wants inner cleansing. He doesn't want just outward appearance in our lives. And only God can do that through His Spirit. And the gospel doesn't just cleanse sin externally, but rather it renews the heart. And what we have to ask this morning is, are you more concerned about what people think about you or what God thinks about you? Are you more concerned about what people think about you or what God thinks about you? Well, if I do this, people will think I am, fill in the blank. Well, if you read this book, people didn't say a lot of people didn't say a lot of kind things about Jesus, you know. You can't be friends of the world and friends of God. Now, what does that mean? I mean, it doesn't mean you can't love people. It means you can't adopt a sinful lifestyle or adhere to their moral code and think that you're going to please God, because God is the one who decides what is right and wrong. And so it's not about what other people think. Like, yes, we want people to see Jesus and mercy and grace and love and compassion and all of that, but it's not about putting on a show. And even this idea of a hypocrite, you know, a hypocrite, more like a play actor. You know, it's not someone that messes up occasionally or sins or whatever. It's someone who is intentionally putting on a show. Back in the day, they would have, they put on plays, and they didn't have a lot of costumes and things. So that what they would do is, or people, and one person would play multiple characters. So what they would do is they'd hold a mask up, they'd do the drama thing, and they'd go behind, and they would change another mask. Now they're a new character, and that's what a hypocrite is, right? They're intentionally being deceiving or putting on a show. They're a play actor. And he's saying, woe to you who are doing that, because the outside appearance is not really matching what the inside is. Excuse me. Go on to verse 28. Woe to you, teachers of the law and the Pharisees, you hypocrites! You are like whitewashed tombs, which look beautiful on the outside, but on the inside are full of the bones of the dead and everything unclean. In the same way, on the outside, you appear to people as righteous, but on the inside, you are full of hypocrisy and wickedness. And again, this would be very shocking to the original hearers, because tombs and graves, that would symbolize death and uncleanness, and it would be a very shocking message. And whitewashing tombs, especially during Passover time, would be very common in that day, especially to kind of avoid the whole idea of being unclean, things of that nature. But what he's saying here is appearances can be deceiving. You know, it's very easy to appear like you're a Christian or like you got it all together, but yet inwardly, he says, it's a graveyard. You're full of bones. It's death going on there. And as he's telling these people that, especially who he's talking to, it would be shocking. These were well-respected people. These were experts in the law, teachers, the Pharisees, that you look up to them, the religious conservatives of the day. And he's saying he's exposing a religious system that's more focused on reputation rather than true holiness. And as he's doing that, it says, you know, the gospel doesn't just make us look alive, but rather it truly brings life to dead bones, right? That God's Spirit regenerates, renews, is working in a true believer to transform us more and more in the image of Christ. Does that mean we're perfect? No. Do we not sin, not mess up? No. But it means that we don't want to continue down that lifestyle or behavior where we are not living like followers of Jesus, and we're more concerned with, you know, whatever it might be, because God sees beyond the image that we present to people, and it's very easy to put on a good show, you know, and you can come and put a suit on and a tie on and a top hat and a monocle, Mr. Peanut, I don't know, and whatever you want to do, and God's like, listen, I still see beyond that. It's putting, you can put on a show, you can look the part, but he's saying appearances can be deceiving, and he sees the heart. Go on to verse 29. Woe to you, teachers of the law and the Pharisees, you hypocrites! You build tombs for the prophets and decorate the graves of the righteous. And you say, if we had lived in the days of our ancestors, we would not have taken part with them in the shedding of the blood of the prophets. So you testify against yourselves that you are the descendants of those who murdered the prophets. Go ahead then and complete what your ancestors started. So we all, of course, know Israel had a history of resisting God's prophets, messengers of God. We think of prophets often as people who predict the future, but ultimately a prophet is someone with a message from God for God's people. There are occasionally predictive elements, but really biblically, it's not about predicting the future. It's about people who have a message from God. And the saying is, you have resisted God's prophets, his message, for so long, and he's saying that you somehow think that you're superior to the previous generations, but he's like, you're doing the same thing in rejecting me, because he is showing this whole kind of thing is that religious people can resist God while thinking they are honoring him. And that's true, because Jesus is saying, listen, I am part of this prophetic message. I am the fulfillment of the law. I am the Messiah, the one that has been long awaited for, and you're going to continue to do what your ancestors have done. And you can resist what God is doing, miss what God is doing, and yet still think you're honoring him. And that can happen in churches and still to this day in many different ways. You know, people that want to preserve their man-made traditions, thinking they're honoring God, but really God is saying, listen, I'm doing something new. You know, and you see this play out, whether it's in different ministries people want to start, or maybe it's even something simple as the way a church looks, or the way a church functions, or the music that a church does, or the version of the Bible they use, or how the preaching is done, or the clothes of the pastor, or whatever. And he's saying, listen, you're missing the point. It is not about any and all of that stuff. And if God is trying to do something to reach a new people, or to have the mindset like the Apostle Paul, he says, I am all things to all people, right? Or I become all things to reach people. And so he's trying to reach people where they are, and you're breaking down just man-made tradition stuff, because God says, listen, my heart is for people. It's not for man-made traditions. It's not that Jesus was walking around holding a King James Bible, sitting in pews, singing Amazing Grace. And that never happened. It's not about that. It's about the gospel, the good news of Jesus Christ. And we even see this, that people can start all kind of trouble within the church or just in lifestyles, thinking they're honoring God, but really they're working against what God is doing and has done. And we see this happen, and that's what Jesus is saying. And they think they're doing right, they think they're doing good and honoring God, but yet he's saying, no, you are missing the point. You look inward. What is going on? Who is God's people for himself? And Jesus here is inserting himself in Israel's story, saying, essentially, this is me fulfilling this. And yet he's showing the pride of the very people to God's present work. They're showing their pride. Look at the pride that you have in exposing it. And it's really not about admiring the truth of the past, but also about surrendering to Christ in the present. And so the thing you have to think of, are there any areas in your life where you celebrate biblical truth intellectually, but resist God practically? Is there any area where you celebrate God intellectually, but you resist him practically in how you live your life, and how you treat other people, and how you spend your time, and things that you're not surrendering over to him? It kind of ties into that Transform series, right? Letting God transform every area of your life, but are there areas that you're resisting and not enabling or allowing God to fully have? You're trying to hold on to that. Go on to verse 33. Now, again, look, Jesus is cooking. He says, you snakes, you brood of vipers, how will you escape being condemned to hell? Therefore, I am sending you prophets and sages and teachers. Some of them you will kill and crucify. Others you will flog in your synagogues and pursue town to town. And so upon you will come all the righteous blood that has been shed on earth, from the blood of the righteous, Abel to the blood of Zechariah, son of Berechiah, whom you murdered between the temple and the altar. Truly I tell you, all of this will come on this generation. And so Jesus here is warning that rejecting God's truth brings judgment. That the religious leaders, while they're leading others, they're remaining spiritually hardened themselves. And that's what happens when you are resisting and rejecting what God has done and is doing, particularly in Christ. Judgment is there because you are cutting yourself off from the only thing that can save you, from a relationship with God through his Son, Jesus Christ. And what we want to see as Jesus is having this, we often picture Jesus as just like a nice little grandpa, teacher maybe, or something, and patting them on the head. But he says, you snakes, you brood of vipers. He's given to them. He's not holding back here. And yet he is saying something that we all need to be honest about, is that God takes hypocrisy seriously. that you can't play the part. You can't put on a show. God knows your heart. God knows what you really do, what you really think, how you spend your time, how you treat other people, how you treat your spouse, how you treat your family, how you treat strangers, how you treat your enemies, how you know, and again, the same people, Jesus says, love your enemies, pray for those that persecute you. And yet God takes it seriously that you can't hide from God. He knows your heart. Now, we're all sinful. We all fail. We all make mistakes. We're not perfect. But you don't want to live a lifestyle of consistent inconsistency in terms of what people see, what you project, versus what really is going on in how you live your life. Because hypocrisy is serious, a thing. You're a play actor. You're pretending. And you know, don't think because you sin or make mistakes that you're automatically a hypocrite. No, this is someone who is putting on a show. They are being deceptive, deceitful. The outside and inside are not matching. And now, again, it can happen maybe in a way where it's not intentional if it's a consistent lifestyle thing. But nevertheless, it's a call to take personal inventory. Does the outside match the inside? And I think it's true of a Christian as well, is what I say with my lips and mouth and project to people and what I claim to believe match practically how I live my life. So I say I'm a follower of Jesus. Okay, well, how does me being a follower of Jesus change and make an impact in my life? Like, if I wasn't a follower of Jesus, would I be living any differently than I am now? Right? Does being a follower of Jesus make any difference in the things that I do and say or don't do and I say? Now, also, that's an honest thing. I mean, even Paul says, examine yourselves to make sure you're in the faith. But at the same time, too, what he's saying is, be careful, because you can keep all the list of things, right? You can have a good little checklist like the Pharisees, the tithing the spices and things like that, but you're also neglecting love and justice and mercy and compassion towards people. It shouldn't be an either or. It should come together, he's saying, right? He's saying, you should be doing good works, but not to earn your salvation or to get right with God, but rather it is a natural product if you are right with God and following Jesus. That will be evidence of faith, if you will. And so the two working together kind of a thing. It's not legalism. It's not earning your faith, because we know we can't earn our way to heaven, but it's rather faith and actions working together, as James would say. And these are covenant warnings kind of a thing. He's exposing what happens to God's people, or when God's people outwardly represent him while inwardly rejecting him. That's a truth, right? He's exposing what happens to God's people when they outwardly claim to represent him, but inwardly actually reject him. And the good news, too, is the gospel, the good news, actually frees us from pretending. You don't have to pretend, because we know that Jesus already knows our hearts. He already knows where we're at, and he offers us real forgiveness and real transformation. That in my sins, in the things that I've done, in my failings, that Christ offers forgiveness. I can't add to my salvation 1 ounce. I am forgiven based on what Christ has done. But we also want to examine ourselves and say, am I practically a follower, a disciple of Jesus, or is it lip service? Because remember, even the book of James says, you believe in one God? Well, good. Even the demons believe that and shudder, right? So it's not about an intellectual, mere belief kind of a thing. It's about intellectual belief, heart, faith, actions all meeting together, because God is not asking for perfection. He's asking for honesty and surrender in your life. Verse 37, Jerusalem, Jerusalem, you who kill the prophets and stone those sent to you. How often I have longed to gather your children together as a hen gathers her chicks under her wings, and you are not willing. Look, your house is left to you desolate. For I tell you, you will not see me again until you say, blessed is the one, he who comes in the name of the Lord. Remember, Jerusalem was the spiritual center of Israel, and yet they repeatedly rejected God's prophets, and ultimately reject Jesus himself. Even in judgment here, though, even when he's pronouncing judgment, Jesus is expressing compassion, which shows us what? This talking here, O Jerusalem, it's not hatred, it's heartbreak. His heart is breaking over them rejecting God, rejecting what he has done. And he longs to gather the people like like a hen gathers the chicks under the wing, but they're unwilling, which shows Jesus desires restoration, not rebuke. It's not about just getting your hand smacked with a ruler. It's not about trying to ruin your fun or good time, but rather he wants you to be restored. He wants you to come to him. He wants you to live full lives, fully human lives, and be who he created you to be in terms of loving him and loving others and being in his freedom and not being entangled of the sins of the world or the distractions of the world or the bondage of evil that looks so freeing but actually push you into bondage and makes you less human. And ultimately, he wants you to be saved and to walk. The gospel, remember, the gospel is good news. For God so loved the world. He says God desires all to be saved. And his heart is for you. And it's not about just rebuking you or punishing or whatever. It's about he wants you to be saved. He wants you to be restored. And you see here, Jesus' heart is breaking over a people who have time and time again rejected him. Them saying, we want to be Lord of our own lives. We want to decide how things should be done or how God will do something. And he desires restoration in that. And he's confronting hypocrisy, not just for rebuke, but he genuinely wants you to be restored. He genuinely wants you to be well and right with God, right with others, and free. And this lament reflects God's love as well, that his love for his people, even though they reject him. Because the gospel isn't just about condemnation of sin, but rather it's about inviting people back to a relationship with God through Jesus Christ. And he's in this thing, he's not trying to expose your heart to shame you. He's trying to restore you, saying, look how far you've gone. No one ever wakes up in the ditch expecting to be in the ditch, right? It's usually a slow fade, and then one day you wake up and say, how did I get to where I am? How did I become the person that I am today? And God is there wanting to restore you, saying, look at your heart, look at your life, be honest, and is God there, and to what degree? And is there a level of hypocrisy or unfaithfulness that we need to relinquish over to him? Because God loves you. He is for you. And he wants what is the best for you. I say it all the time, it's not about a list of rules of do's and don'ts and God being a cosmic killjoy. No, it's God that is for us and wants you to have the most blessed life, successful life, and not to be pulled into sin and darkness and brokenness that entangles so many people. And he wants you to know him and to walk with him and to experience his love with you or for you. And again, we can all at times maybe drift away in some words or need awakening and saying, well, how is my relationship with God? But we should take this message seriously, all of us, and make sure we're not falling into the trap the Pharisees did. The Pharisees thought they were good because they kept the list of do's and don'ts and their tithing and this and that, but they were also missing the bigger picture. Mercy, justice, love, things of that nature. And as we see that is a crucial component of all things. And as Christians, when we go out of this place, when we go to work, when we go to school, when we're around our friends, when we're in our homes, how are we then? Are we the same here versus there or not? As we close, we're going to play a very quick video. I saw this popular video online. It's like 2 minutes long, but I think it really spoke to the reality of many people's situations. And I'm not sure if it's going to play at home on the live stream. If not, we'll provide a link for you to watch it there. But this time we'll play